Do you think Shedeur knew they wanted to make an example out of him?
I don't think he realized to the extent that the NFL would go to make an example out of him. No, I don't think he knew that. I don't think his dad knew the extent of it.
What if one of the NFL's most exciting young prospects wasn't just overlooked, but deliberately blackballed? A name like Shedeur Sanders doesn't just appear on a draft board. It dominates headlines, sells out stadiums, and brings tens of millions in endorsements before ever playing a snap in the league. But according to Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, the NFL didn't just pass on Shedeur. They allegedly tried to send a message, a silent warning to every player who builds a brand, flashes wealth, or challenges the league's hierarchy. We still run this. Behind the scenes, private phone calls were allegedly made, teams discouraged, and a calculated effort emerged, not to scout the best talent, but to make an example out of one young man with the wrong kind of confidence for the old NFL. And the most jaw-dropping part of all, the team that drafted him may have only done it to avoid getting caught.
What about it? But every owner is very, very selfish. Now, why would I do something to my detriment? Like if I need a quarterback and I think this kid is it, what he didn't realize is the guys that have fallen in the draft before, they all had unusual traits. Like they had some superstar qualities to them. Now, some other things happened that made them fall, but Shedeur and his family, they overplayed their hand. Them thinking that he was in the same evaluation mode as Eli Manning.
This isn't a theory cooked up by fans. It's coming straight from inside the league. So what really happened to Shedeur Sanders on draft night? And who's behind the effort to strip rising stars of their power? From the moment Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the college football field, he didn't just play, he took over. Not just because of his last name, but because of his poise, accuracy, and ability to stay calm under pressure. He wasn't flashy for the sake of attention. He was flashy because he could back it up. And in today's game, that should have skyrocketed his draft stock. By all metrics, Shedeur was NFL ready. He had the stats, the leadership, the national spotlight, and perhaps most importantly, the numbers that move business. Colorado saw record-breaking jersey sales. Ratings surged every time he played, and brands lined up at his door.
And I'll tell you this much here, what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told other, don't draft him, do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him. And this came from a very good source. And he said that, I won't say who, somebody called the Cleveland Browns and said, don't do that.
Before draft day even arrived, Shedeur reportedly secured over $30 million in NIL deals. More money than most rookies ever see in their entire careers. That kind of leverage makes people nervous, especially in a league built on control. Because when a 21-year-old QB is flashing luxury watches, walking red carpets, and trending harder than half the league's starters, some saw a superstar. Others saw a problem. And that problem, according to insiders, is exactly why the NFL wanted to shut him down before he even got started. No one expected a Hall of Fame legend to drop the biggest accusation of the offseason. But that's exactly what Eric Dickerson did. On a recent podcast appearance, Dickerson claimed he spoke directly to a high-ranking NFL insider, someone with knowledge of what really happened during the draft. According to him, multiple teams were warned not to draft Shedeur Sanders, not because of his talent.
They were forced into drafting him because somebody made a call to them, said, and I say, when I say this is a NFL side source for sure, so this is not here. So look, one thing about it is, and I'll just say it, they don't like when guys have brands, especially black players. And that's mostly us with the brand. We kind of, some guys are flashy and all that kind of stuff. They don't like that.
Not because of his character, but because the league allegedly wanted to make him an example. The exact words, "We're going to make an example out of him." Dickerson went further, saying a specific call was made to the Cleveland Browns, telling them point blank, don't do it. Don't draft him. The goal wasn't just pushing Shedeur down the board. It was to make sure he didn't get picked at all. Because if a player like Shedeur young, popular, confident, and making millions before ever joining the league, could succeed on his own terms, that would shake the NFL's traditional power structure to its core. And this wasn't speculation coming from some social media rumor. These were direct allegations from a respected veteran, someone with nothing to gain by putting this information out there. But the deeper reason behind it, that's where things get even darker. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just an athlete. He was already a business, a movement, and for some, a
This kid, Fred, I don't think you knew this. He had already made $17 million from a car deal that he already signed. A car deal. He had $17 million already for that. Then he had another 14, I think, from was it a shoe, Nike or some shoe deal.
Before the NFL even called his name, he had already locked in a car endorsement deal reportedly worth $17 million. And another massive shoe deal said to be north of $14 million. That's over $30 million in personal brand earnings. The kind of money that makes rookie contracts look like spare change. And it wasn't just the money that had league insiders raising eyebrows. It was the image. Shedeur showed up in designer outfits. He wore and that's exactly what they weren't ready for. But their response to that power, that's where the story turns. At first glance, it just looked like one of those things that happens at the draft. A top talent slipping lower than expected. Maybe a bad interview here, a questionable critique there. Happens all the time, right? But the situation with Shedeur Sanders felt different. Too different. Multiple teams that publicly praised him, like the Steelers, suddenly passed. Analysts scrambled to justify it with generic critiques. He's not mobile enough, or he can't throw deep. But fans had watched the same highlights. He had the footwork, the arm, the clutch moments. So how does a quarterback like that fall to the later rounds? Then came Eric Dickerson's claims, powerful ones, that someone inside the league made it clear Shedeur wasn't supposed to get drafted at all. It wasn't just one team deciding to pass. It was teams allegedly being instructed to. Insiders, according to Dickerson, were told, let him fall. Let this be a warning to others. Now let's be clear, this has not been confirmed by the NFL. But when a Hall of Famer says it came from a very good source and the draft pattern backs it up, it's hard to just write off as paranoia or coincidence, because the next move made by the Cleveland Browns raised even more eyebrows. According to Dickerson, the plan was plain and simple. Don't draft Shedeur Sanders. Let him fall out completely. Make an example out of him for every future player who dares to show up with a brand too big and a personality too loud. And for a moment, it looked like that plan was working, until something strange happened. The Cleveland Browns, who had already drafted a quarterback earlier in the draft, suddenly picked Shedeur, despite having no reported intention to. According to Dickerson, it wasn't because they wanted him. It was because someone made a call. A move that, on the surface, looks like support, but might have actually been a cover-up. The Fury? Take him late. Slap his name on a draft card and avoid a full-blown collusion scandal. Because if no one picked him, it would have been too obvious. But if one team grabbed him late, the league could say, see, nothing shady here. But here's the twist. Everyone knew it didn't make sense. Cleveland had no need for Shedeur, yet they took him. Not early, not mid, but far enough down to damage his image, lower his contract value, and send a message, polished on the surface, but ugly underneath. After the draft, the tone shifted. Suddenly, the same league that allegedly didn't want Shedeur was putting his face everywhere. His jerseys flew off the shelves within hours. He was featured in promotional graphics, team content, and media pushes. The NFL leaned into the hype, but only for the business side. Behind the scenes, things told a different story. Reports surfaced that the Browns didn't even plan to play Shedeur in the opener. The only reason he saw the field was due to an injury, an opportunity he didn't ask for but completely capitalized on. With pressure high and the spotlight even brighter, Shedeur stepped in and delivered. Undeniable proof that the talent was never the issue. Still, it was clear. The league was more than willing to use his image, sell his story, and profit off his name. But when it came to actually supporting his career path, their enthusiasm seemed to stop at the surface. They didn't want to lift him, only contain him. And as Shedeur started winning over fans game by game, one truth began to emerge. They didn't expect him to push through, and they definitely didn't want him to rise. It didn't take long for fans to start connecting the dots. The same teams that had publicly praised Shedeur before the draft, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, mysteriously passed on him. Even after strong interviews, glowing reports, and visible need at the quarterback position, he still slid past round after round. When the dust settled, nothing added up. Fans weren't buying the excuses anymore. He can't throw deep. He proved them wrong on game tape. He's not mobile. He might not be Lamar Jackson, but he was more than capable of escaping the pocket and making plays. And while critics tried to paint him as overrated, the numbers, wins, and impact told a different story. Even respected veterans like Asante Samuel clashed with NFL voices like Chris Carter over the narrative. Samuel defended Shedeur publicly, calling out the league's bias and hypocrisy, a sentiment echoed by thousands of fans who felt something deeper was at play. This wasn't about performance, it was about positioning, keeping power in the hands of franchises and out of the hands of players with their own voices, their own brands, and their own influence. And now, that quiet system of control was being exposed. And the most powerful part? The fans weren't staying silent. This wasn't just about one draft pick. It was about power. Who has it? Who's allowed to keep it? And what happens when someone young, confident, and unapologetically self-made challenges the system? The NFL is a business built on brand control. For decades, the league shaped the narratives, picked the stars, and decided who got the spotlight. But players like Shedeur Sanders, they flipped that model on its head. With a Hall of Fame father as his coach, a massive social media following, and business deals independent of any professional contract, Shedeur didn't need the NFL's permission to be famous. He walked into the draft with way too much leverage, the kind that made executives uncomfortable. So when Eric Dickerson said they wanted to make an example out of him, it wasn't just speculation. It reflected a long-standing undercurrent in how the league deals with players who come in with their own voice, especially when that player is young, black, and not willing to play by old-school rules. They couldn't control his personality. They couldn't silence his style. So, according to insiders, they tried to reclaim the power the only way they still could, by humbling him publicly. What happened to Shedeur Sanders isn't just one young quarterback slipping in the draft. It's a turning point, a clash between the NFL's old structure and a new generation of players who know their value before the league does. Whether or not the alleged collusion was fully coordinated, the signals are clear. If you come into the NFL too early with too much power, they might not celebrate you. They might try to shrink you. ... And Shedeur? He didn't just bring stats. He brought independence, millions in endorsements, viral moments, a massive audience, all without ever taking a professional snap. For a league built on controlling the product, that's not a player. That's a threat. But here's the twist. Even with power allegedly working against him, Shedeur is still rising. He's won over fans, outperformed expectations, and become a symbol of something far bigger. This is no longer just about football. It's about the battle between legacy systems trying to maintain control and young athletes rewriting the rules in real time. So the real question isn't what happened to Shedeur Sanders. It's who's next?